today. All right, welcome to our weekly waste reduction live streams with cast trips. If you have been on a cast trip before, or you are maybe planning on going one, we would love to know where you are headed or where you've been, so you can let us know about that in the chat as well. We're Cast Trips. We lead engaging, sustainable student trips around the world, and we're spending the month of May challenging ourselves to make a change while we are at home.
As some of you may know, the UN Sustainable Development Goals and exciting student challenges are at the heart of everything we do here at Cast Trips, which is why we wanted to keep all that positive impact going despite all being in lockdown. We're a global community and you're all part of that, so what better way to come together than by using our quarantine time to focus on waste reduction. Another crucial aspect of Cast Trips is the notion of thinking global, acting local. If you want to make an impact on a global issue, the best place to start by making that change is at home.
Indeed. And while we are spending more time at home, we here at Cast Trips would like to keep our international student collaboration alive while taking steps to make the world a bit of a better place. Our at-home waste reduction challenges is mainly social media based, and you can find our partner and tour guide tips, tricks, and sustainability DIY projects on Instagram and Facebook to get more inspiration. If you are inspired to reduce your waste or are participating in our Cast at Home challenges, make sure to tag us at Cast Trips or use the hashtag #CastAtHome. If you're out there and not using social media, that's totally fine. You can find all of the challenge worksheets and live stream recordings on our website, casttrips.org/WRC or waste reduction.
Over the past week, we've been working on reducing our single waste plastic. So I just want to go over some of the interesting things we received from the submissions that you sent in. So a lot of people made changes. Some people who didn't have recycling setups started to set up recycling systems in their homes. Some people made small changes like replacing using plastic straws with a paper or a metal straw, taking fabric bags for the shopping instead of using any plastic bags that are available there. A lot of you had some challenges, but also success influencing the people around you. So influencing family members. Some people even influence their neighbors and their communities into making changes, which is amazing. One of the biggest problems that seemed to come through was the single-use plastic bottles. So a lot of you have decided that you're going to eliminate that. You're going to use reusable bottles, which is great. There were some quite interesting things. So Regina sent to us that she is working with a local organization, and when you collect 1,000 bottle caps, you actually help to pay for someone's chemotherapy treatment, which is an amazing initiative. Nora was very impressive as well, because her and her family have actually set up a mini garden in their kitchen where they're growing herbs and some vegetables like carrots. We also got some amazing videos and photos of people making their homemade snacks, so they weren't, forced to use plastic wrapping for their snacks. We also got some really interesting videos and information from Estefania, who was running out of the plastic, so she actually went to her neighbors and started collecting their plastic as well, also telling them about recycling and raising awareness. She also sent a demonstration video making her own soap, and one of the more interesting things was that her and her family have been for some time collecting plastic wrapping to make eco blocks, which actually helps building houses. So like some really interesting submissions. So I'm really looking forward to what we're going to receive next week as well.
Mm-hmm. I know we got a question here in the chat asking if the Waste Reduction Challenge can be treated as a CAST project. And the #1 suggestion we have for you, if you're looking at using any of these as a CAST project for school, just discuss it with your CAST coordinator. All of these are great options to tie to your CAST projects while at home, but that's not a decision we can make. So a great idea to look at using them, though. We hope that does inspire you, which is a perfect time to bring in a student who sent in a really amazing submission about what they've been working on in plastic reduction and for CAS. So I would like to bring a student on from Dubai now. Akshanj? Did I pronounce that right?
Yeah, that's how you say it. Akshanj.
Hi
Hi guys,
there.
good evening.
All right.
Yeah.
Welcome. Can you tell
So
us a little bit about your project and what you did?
yeah, sure. So well, it would be great if I could share my screen. So if that's fine with you.
Let's see here. Yeah, totally. I can allow you to do that.
All right. Okay. So well, can you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So well, my journey into tackling plastic and our oceans and just waste in our oceans really started when I read an article. So I was pretty young that time, but it said the UN estimates that approximately 8 million tons of plastic enters our oceans each year. And I'm like, wow, that's a lot. That's not little. That's quite a bit. So, but I forgot about it. I was just a kid. Now, a few months later, I was going for my 50th dive, and as I entered the water, we could see layers and layers of just waste, and it was crazy because after that dive I received my master scuba diver certification and it was amazing, but then I really wanted to fix this issue. I wanted to help the environment, and I was just like, this is not okay. So I started my own small little initiative, and it was just account on Instagram at first, and a month later, I organized my first cleanup dive with my friends, and they were like, "Yeah, sure, let's try this thing out." So we came back, and we were happy, but there was something missing. We left a lot of waste behind because we were just not able to get everything out of the water, and sometimes it was just too heavy, or well, it was not in our capability to bring it up, So I designed a product called a lift bag. I call them lift bags, well, right? And all it does really is it brings our collected waste or any heavy objects that's stuck in the bottom of the ocean near the seabed, which is nearly 10 meters plus, and it just used to bring it up. So that's the lift bag, and it could just, like an underwater balloon, bring anything heavy straight up. And all we had to do was put air in it. So I was just amazed by this simple thing and how it could do so much. Now, in our last dive around in November, before this unfortunate situation, I really put my lift bag to the test. And as you can see, we were 12 people, and a group, they found a fishing net, an abandoned fishing net, which was trapping fishes, and it also was destroying the coral reefs in the region. So we were stunned, and all we did was we attached a lift bag because it was too heavy for anyone else to bring it up. So we just attached a lift bag and just filled a bunch of air in it, and it went straight to the surface. It was that simple. And it was preserving the undersea environment by such a simple thing. That day we brought nearly 31 kilograms of waste, and well, the fishing net did contribute a lot to it. So I was just amazed by how much such little things could do. And well, this is why I started this initiative, to preserve our undersea environment, even if it just may be, well, a small step. So that is the
Mhm.
CBN Dive Initiative, and my name is Akshansh.
It's really great, Akshansh. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm actually a fellow scuba diver, so I understand how complicated and difficult that is for you to have completed all of that. So I really congratulate you. I think it's also a great example of how together individual actions really can make a lot of big changes. If people are all collecting plastic, it shows the change that can be made. So one last question. Do you have any upcoming environmental projects planned in the future?
Well, because of our current situation, we in UAE we aren't exactly allowed to, go on recreational or any sort of activities like these. But as soon as the situation gets better, I am planning a couple of cleanup dives along with my friends and anyone who's interested. And obviously, just to make sure, we've got our partnered dive center in Fujairah, which is a city close by, and they actually sponsor all our dive costs, so it's all free for us. And they're like, it's all fine because they really like the initiative, and well, we've got a hotel and a resort supporting the area, so they really would appreciate that we're cleaning it for them, basically. And that's why they just sponsor us, all our dive costs, all the equipment, and they're in fact waiting for us to reply and come back from the situation. And yeah, that's when we'll be planning the next cleanup dives.
Well, I wish you the best of luck with that. Thank you so much for sharing today. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's an amazing initiative,
Yeah,
especially when the local businesses are supporting, initiatives that students have started. That's really great. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on from plastic that we've been focusing on the last week towards food waste.
Exactly. Today we have a really special speaker that we're going to be talking to. We're going to be speaking to Francesca in Sabato from the Environmental Sustainability, or who works as an Environmental Sustainability Consultant with the UN World Food Program. If you have any questions throughout this interview, please put them in the chat and we will sort through them and pick out a few questions to ask at the end of our interview with Francesca. All right, Francesca, welcome.
Thank you so much, guys. And I have to say, hearing about your stories is really inspirational, because I can see the added value of these local initiatives on plastic reduction, and it's really important that you keep up this way, especially now because under lockdown we are using so many masks and so many plastic-based products, and we need to dispose them well to avoid more plastic pollution. So keep walking the talk as you're doing, and I'm sure that the world can actually have a positive future. So going back to food waste. So I know that Cass has a few questions, so I don't know if you want to kickstart, Neil. In that case, if you can hear me well, I might start with
Okay. Yeah, I just got back. Sorry about that. But can you introduce yourself and a bit about what the World Food Program does?
Yes, well, as Neil stated, I work for the Sustainability Unit of the World Food Program, which is the largest humanitarian agency in the world, and we take care of building supply chain structures and delivering food to the people in need. So food is really our core business, and bringing food around the world is really what we do and we try to do best. So that's also why food waste is such a relevant matter for us.
Francesca, just to talk a little bit for a moment about food production, can you just go through and enlighten us on what it takes to bring the food that we eat to the table?
Of course, and thank you for this question, because actually it takes much more than it seems. We know that a complete meal means many things. It represents a ritual, a daily ritual that allows us to get fuel into our bodies, and it's a symbol of shared daily life. But before reaching our plate, actually food goes a number of stages, and the sum of these stages makes up what is called a food chain. Mm-hmm. So by a stage, I mean food transport, food packaging, food processing, and all of these steps actually have an impact. They have an environmental, economic, and social impact. So take something simple like avocados. I'm sure that most of us have tried an avocado in their life. And this is the type of food that is really yummy, but doesn't naturally grow in Europe. So normally what is done is that this kind of food is imported from other countries, from Latin America or the southern regions in the world. And this transportation via cargo or shipping or plane can actually have a huge environmental impact, because lots of emissions are required to carry this food from one place to another. Okay, and as I said, each of the steps on the food chain has potential impacts, but also involves the use of resources like energy, water, land. Just you can think about extensive animal farming that occupies a lot of land. So really, it's more complex than it seems, I can guarantee.
I believe that. I really do believe that. You were just touching on it a bit, but I think As we discuss sustainability, it's most important for us to understand why we're making these changes. So can you explain some of the negative impacts that are linked to the food system worldwide and what we should be aware of, especially when it comes, of course, to our environment and climate?
Thank you, Neil. Yes, and that's really relevant. And I would kickstart with the one point on the use of resources. So, as we said, animal farming and transporting pollute the atmosphere, having a negative impact on climate change. Livestock supply normally generate a substantial impact on the environment in terms of land occupation and carbon footprint. Even the livestock, and by livestock I mean cattle and cows, these animals, even when they're alive, they emit in the atmosphere methane, that is a greenhouse gas that contributes to worsen the situation in terms of climate change, and also the production process that's behind producing meat is very extensive in terms of resource and use of resources. I'd like to get a little more into the details on that, and talking about a resource that all of us know very well. It's we all use water every day for our daily cooking operations, to wash ourselves. But did you know that to produce 1 kilogram of beef, of beef, it actually takes up to 15,000 liters of water, 15,000. And this is really a lot. If you think about an average 1 liter bottle, 15,000, it's really huge. And also other types of food, like a loaf of bread, can require up to 1,000 liters of water. It's not as much as meat, but still a lot. And the reason why I'm sharing these facts is that maybe when we see food in a supermarket, we usually associate a value to that food related to the price tag that we see on that food. But that price tag is only a small fraction, really a very small, tiny fraction of what is behind the real cost of that food. And that food required to be created energy, water, land use, and so many other components. And you know, the overproduction of some types of food, like beef in particular, can really contribute negatively to climate change, unfortunately. So that's my first point. And the reason why I wanted to highlight the value, the inner value of food, is also that this makes us connect the dots and understand why food waste is really that negative. Because, you know, when we overbuy and we end up throwing away some food, that food that we are throwing away, one, had a value, a huge value, and two, is actually likely to produce emissions even after it's out of our houses, because the food that rottens in landfills actually keeps on, the organic food, keeps on producing greenhouse gas emissions like methane. So the more organic food we waste, the more emissions there will be, and the more we will have the need to dispose the waste properly. And I guess that on the use of resources side of things, that's pretty much it. But as we were starting to analyze, the transportation factor is really a key element to understand, and we have to understand and recognize that transporting food from one side of the world to another can lead up to huge quantities of greenhouse gas emissions. So what we should do as a, let's say, general practice is try to privilege local producers and try to adopt what is called a proximity approach to our grocery shopping, because really the impact that we have on the environment is less if we buy local than if we start buying things that come from very far away places.
That's really, really interesting facts that you've given us there. I just want to move on to a slightly different point. So the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN estimates that each year about 1/3 of all the food produced for human consumption in the world is lost or wasted, while 821 million people, or 1 in 9 people, still go to bed on an empty stomach each night. So what solutions can we find in connecting food waste and the hunger problem?
Thank you so much for this question. That's so relevant to us. And as a general advice, I have to say that we all must learn to waste less and use our resources better. It's really a matter of resource efficiency that we have to take care of. So something that is important to understand is that there are food losses and waste from two different sides of the same coin, because there is food waste from the producer and the production process, and there is food waste coming from the consumer side of things, so the consumption process. So on the producer side of things, energy and resource efficiency is really key. And what the UN and other agencies, but also NGOs, try to do is to lobby on the big corporates to make sure that they take into account environmental impacts, and they try to reduce their impact on the general food system. And another aspect on the production side of things is that nowadays, especially in industrialized countries, potentially there is food for everyone, because the level of production is very high in some countries, like in the US or Europe. We produce a lot, even more than what we need. And the real deal is not about the amount of food available in the world, is about being able to allocate this food, to transport that food to the people in need. So that's also what the WFP and the UN agencies are doing. We are trying to really get connected to local communities and try to bring food where it's needed, trying to fill the gaps and be sure that no one goes to bed hungry at night. Unfortunately, there's still a long way to go, but this is our duty. And on the consumer side of things, the good news is that we can all have a part to play, to help our community and reduce food waste. Here in Europe, each retailer and consumer can make the difference and adopt responsible consumption behavior. And that can be done by buying less and trying to buy less impactful foods. For example, as we were saying earlier before, meat can really have a huge impact. And if you want to have an impact on your community, something very easy that you could do is start, for example, sharing with your families a meatless Monday, or a general day within the week where you don't eat red meat especially. And in general, try to reduce your weekly consumption of red meat, as it's one of the most impactful food on an environmental perspective. And let's say that you can also try to eat as much seasonal food as possible, because this is another very important factor to reduce food waste. We should definitely try to to go with the same rhythm of nature. So if you see some vegetables or fruit that are available at certain season, you should try to go for them instead of trying to buy and eat strawberries in December, for example, or cherries in December. I mean, and why am I saying that? Yeah, I mean, just because, producing these resources in a season that is not the proper one requires even more resources than usual to produce, okay? And it's not necessarily healthy also, or that food may come from faraway regions. And I would say that also the food quality can resent of the long journey they have to do to come to our table. So let's try to be seasonal and local, and that's really something that we can all try to do.
I agree. It's been really nice having all the spring vegetables become available again here so that we can cook with some new things. So I agree with that. I really appreciate all of that information. And we actually got a really relevant question about hunger. How do we get the food we don't need to people who need it? Is there something that we can do on an individual level to help?
Okay, thank you for this question. And so on a macro perspective, let's say that WFP connects to governments, and the governments and the individual companies to take the food that we need, and then we deliver it to poor countries. And I would say that this kind of operation needs to be taken care of by big institutions, because it requires a lot of attention, because there's a precise number of days that need to be respected if you want to maintain the food quality. And it's something that really we try to focus on. But on a small scale, so on a local scale, what we strongly advise to do is to get in touch with the local associations or NGOs that, for example, bring food to poor people or homeless people. So whenever you know that you are going to have a surplus or much more food than you need, you can try absolutely to get in touch with these associations in your cities. And in some cases, they even let you go around with them and feed the homeless people. And that's really regenerating experience. I would say it's something, it's a form of activism that it's really positive. But in any case, you can just call them and they will come and take the food for you. And this is definitely something that you can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great tips. Thank you. All right, really relevant question here, kind of to finish things up a little bit. We are all in a very unique world situation with COVID-19, and it's affecting industries all around the world. How's it affecting the food system industries worldwide, and what's going to need to adapt or change in the future, thanks to what we're learning in these current times?
Thank you for that, Neil. Yes, we're all living daunting times from in a way
Indeed.
unexpected times for sure. But yeah, we're all trying to take care of these kind of issues. As you can imagine, being the World Food Program an institution that relies a lot on global supply chains, the problem with that is that we are experiencing border closures, quarantines, and the market in general is less accessible. So this is one of the main problems. There are bottlenecks in the supply chain that we need to get fixed in order to be able to bring food to the people in need. And the severe aspect, the bad thing about this situation is that when there is this kind of crisis, it is likely to impact most on the people in need. So the people who were already fragile are likely to be even more fragile now if we don't act to do something. So absolutely, the UN is working jointly, is joining forces to do whatever we can to avoid these bottlenecks. And on a local perspective, I'm sure that all of you have seen the impact of COVID-19 also on local businesses. So probably you've seen in your town restaurants or companies shutting down for a while because they were under lockdown. And maybe, to really support your community, you could try to order delivery food from them, try to inject some liquidity in your local economy. And that's how you can all contribute maybe to build resilience, at least in your town.
We've also had a nice comment in the chat from Beck, who was saying that that their family had more food than they needed and they donated it to the homeless community. So I think that there's a number of things we can do, and especially if we can make that support go to people who need it, then that's really important. Just to finish up, Francesca, you've given us a lot of information, a lot of tips. It's actually staggering the impact that this has. The students over the next week are going to try and minimize their food waste. Are there any top tips you can give them for this?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, well done with the last week tips and the last week achievements, because they were really great. So I would have a slogan today for you. My slogan would be buy less, choose well, and make it last. So really, this is my mantra for today. But to translate it into actionable points, I would say to start from concrete actions like starting small. I mean, take smaller portions at home and share the large dishes at restaurants. So you can try to avoid the food waste in that sense. Leave nothing behind, so keep your leftovers for another meal or use them in a different dish. Of course, in a safe way, so you don't food poison yourself, but absolutely leave nothing behind. Buy only what you need, so be smart with your shopping. Sometimes a list can be useful when you go to the supermarket, because sometimes we do shopping with our eyes, but this can be really problematic, because then we go back home with lots of things that we don't really consume. And another thing that is really important, don't be prejudiced, I would say. buy ugly or irregularly shaped fruit and vegetables because they are as good as other fruit and vegetables. This is something very important, you know, on the retailer side of things, because sometimes we see an ugly apple or carrot and we think, oh no, I'm not buying that, but that fruit is actually great, is as good as the others, and it's going to be wasted if we don't buy it. And also, finally, I would say that it's very important to understand dates. So on the food packaging, you can find some indications on the consumption for these foods. So use by indicates a date by which the food is safe to be eaten. Best before means that the food's quality is best prior that date, but it's still safe for consumption after that. So you don't have to throw it away. You can still consume it, right? And then if some of you are able to, try to compost. You know, some food waste might be unavoidable, so why not set up a compost bin? And that's pretty much it from my side.
Awesome. That actually brings the last question I had for you. There was a question asking if their local community doesn't have options for composting or warm bins. If you have any suggestions for what people can do with their decomposable food waste in that sense.
They could actually try to lobby on their community to start having these bins. You know, I think that really
exactly.
all about the power of each individual. I mean, guys, you are a community and you have the power of shaping the world that comes next. So really try to lobby on try to lobby on the local efforts.
Sorry, you can keep speaking. I keep lagging. I can't hear you. Finish up, Francesca. Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, it's really much.
You're good? Awesome. I wanted just to say that it's actually really good timing because one of our Cast Trips tour guides is starting a compost bin in her apartment complex, and we're sharing a video about that this week for this challenge. So everyone will be able to see exactly even how to set up a compost bin at home. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, Francesca. It's truly been a pleasure. I really appreciate the information you had to share, and all the students did.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for that. And I hope that this contribution might be helpful, and keep walking the talk as you're doing, because really I appreciate your job and each student's contribution.
Yes, us too. So thank you very much, Francesca. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very, very interesting interview. I think we can learn a lot from that. One of the things that I always try and do is not go shopping for groceries on an empty stomach, because I always end up overbuying. And I've started trying to plan my meals. And Francesca was also talking about meatless Mondays. And I know that the founder of Cast Trips, Solomon, is doing meatless Mondays, and it seems to be working out pretty well for him. Now, moving on to the next challenge, everyone, the food waste. So what we're going to do this week, we're going to look in detail at the impact the food waste has on the environment. We're going to analyze our own food waste over the week by documenting what we wasted, why we wasted it, and how we disposed of it. So you're going to be challenged to take a snapshot of an aspect of this week's challenge that shocked or inspired you. So it's not so specific like last week. We want you to post it to social media with all the tags. And again, we'll reflect on the whole experience throughout and try and find solutions to minimize our food waste. If you've got any questions about this, please let us know now in the chat. Additionally, there is an extra creative food disposal challenge for you involving home composting. So you can try and attempt to do your own compost in your kitchen at home.
Yeah, we'll be sharing your waste reduction creations on our social media this week, starting today, and tomorrow we'll be sharing your plastic creations. So please send us your projects either online through social media or via email to wastereduction@casttrips.org. We would really appreciate that. If you don't have social media, that's totally fine. All of the information for the challenge is online on our website, casttrips.org/WRC or /waste reduction challenge. You can stay in touch with us throughout the week on social media using the hashtag #CastAtHome or tagging us at CastTrips on Instagram or Facebook. All right. Good luck in recording your food waste at home this week, and we look forward to seeing everyone again next week. Adios. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.